Somewhere in Baltimore, a landlord got a $25,000 water bill. They didn't know what to do, so they just didn't pay it, stopped paying their water bills in general. I'm going to tell you what one email could have saved them and why they never sent it. At the surface, this looked like a normal BRRRR deal, like any other deal. We bought the house for 70K. It's going to need about $20,000 worth of work. We have roughly $22,000 worth of closing costs, and we think it'll appraise for around 160K. We'll be all in for a net $8,000 cash back in our pocket, and then we'll have a PITI of around $1,050 and rent it for $1,500. It's a lean, slightly skinny deal, but not the worst considering the cash back, and it's a lower rent, so we didn't mind having a slightly lower gross cash flow margin. So this house is a 2-1. I usually don't prefer 2-1s because the ARV is lower and the renovation cost isn't that different. If you think about it, the renovation cost for a 2-1 versus a 3-1 is really just a little bit of extra flooring and extra paint, but the ARV is extremely different between the two properties. But recently I've started getting larger discounts on 2-bed houses, so I'm willing to take more of a shot with them. Anyway, we buy the house and immediately we notice that there's a ton of moisture and dampness in the basement. We determine that the house is missing its back gutters, so water is coming inside of the basement. So we fix that, we put on gutters and fix that area at the back. Then we notice that there's still dampness. So then we notice that there's one of the windows at the back where the wood is all rotted around the windows. So we take the window out, reframe the window in, and put the window back in. Notice the water is still coming in. By the way, this sort of trial and error is how we deal with moisture in basements for rental properties, particularly when they're unfinished basements. You can go in and put in a whole French drain system and spend thousands of dollars to do that, but a lot of times there's actually some cause for the water. So in the case of a flip, we'd probably do the French drain because we want to be certain before we hand it off to the buyer. In the case of a rental, because we're the one taking on the cost, we'll do trial and error and figure out what's actually wrong with the basement so we can resolve it at a lower cost. But in any event, we've tried all these different things and we still see that there's moisture coming in, and we notice that it's specifically in one area at the front of the basement, and we notice low water pressure inside the house. So what we do next is we break a little bit of concrete around the area where the dampness keeps coming in the front, and we determine that there's actually water leaking inside the brick wall at the front of the house from the main water line. So that's an unfortunate item to miss at the property. From a due diligence perspective, missing this is roughly a $3,500 mistake for us because we're going to have to replace the water line. Now, for us, this is a pretty good price. We get better pricing than a lot of folks do on this type of issue, but regardless, still, we would have preferred not to miss that. So we cut the water off at the street so it doesn't keep leaking, and we continue on with the project. And then I had a thought to check the HUD from the sale and see if the seller had any issues with this because they didn't mention it in any of their disclosures. And I noticed the seller paid a $25,000 water bill at closing. So in Baltimore City, for those that don't know, the water bill just accumulates. It's a lien on the property, but they don't take your house at tax sale. So this means the guy basically had this water bill running up and he had to pay it at closing. It came out of his proceeds. So now we get to the core point of a passive versus an active investor. This guy, somewhere along the way, just started getting high water bills for water and he didn't know how to fix it. So he just stopped paying the bills. He didn't know what the issue was, and we had to demo a wall to find it. Plus, for him, it'd be closer to $6,000 to get this done, and maybe he doesn't have the $6,000. He doesn't know how to BRRRR to get the money to do it. And so he's a passive investor hoping to collect mailbox money, and he basically ran into a situation where he couldn't keep doing that. So contrast that with us. We have the skills and understanding to find this problem, break the wall, and find the leak. We can stop the high water bill from accumulating by shutting the water off at the street, and then we can convert the whole situation into a win. So it's something that would have been a loss for him, and we're able to turn it into a win, and we can add capital back into our reserves because we're getting $8,000 back and pick up a house that can more or less support itself and its own expenses. But here's the real crazy part of the story. If he had gotten the water line fixed prior to selling us the house, he could have disputed the high water bill with the city, and then he could have gotten the $25,000 potentially removed from his water bill. This is because Baltimore City has a water leak adjustment program. Basically, you tell them that you're having a leak because of some problem. You then document that you did the repair. You submit proof, and they reduce or eliminate the accrued balance. We've had $5,000 water bills removed, 100%. We've had some water bills partially removed. So basically, because he lacked this understanding of how to solve this problem, he was looking at a $6,000 repair that he couldn't afford to pay and a $25,000 lien he couldn't fight. And we're looking at a $3,500 repair. And if it had been us in his situation, we wouldn't have had to pay the $25,000 because we would have known what to do in that situation. So we're getting a property that cash flows. He just had a property that became a problem. It's the same house, but a completely different reality because of skill, not luck, because we were active, not because we were passive. And one email cost him $25,000. It's worth it to become an expert because then you're able to keep your equity in your pocket rather than paying it out at closing because you forgot to send an email.